Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here, or Coach Cropper if you please. So the first thing that you need to build a case is a resolution. Now ideally you're going to have an affirmative and a negative speech on any given resolution. So people could put out a video just about a resolution and the definitions of a term, you know, a 2 or 3 minute video or whatever. Then people go on the affirmative and negative and answer each other's arguments. So we're going to build an affirmative and a negative case on the resolution. Resolved. Education is indispensable for mature adulthood. Now, some other sample resolutions have been like resolved. The community's security is more important than an individual's liberty. NFL, the National Forensics League homepage or website, go look at them. They got their stuff, and you can get their resolutions, which come out usually in the fall. There's 2 per year, I believe. So we can make up any resolution we want to and debate on it. And the resolution I'll be using for our sample cases here is education is indispensable for mature adulthood. We will be doing an affirmative and a negative case, and ideally that's what you have in the art of debate. You have an affirmative and a negative case. So it's not just can you make your case, it's can you make the other guy's case. And it comes down to sophistry, and sometimes your hands get dirty. So we're not necessarily going to everybody have to have an affirmative and negative argument on anything they address, but ideally that's the format that it's come down to us in the form of, you know, this formalized debate taught in schools. So if you're not familiar with Lincoln-Douglas debate, which goes back to Abraham Lincoln and not Michael Douglas, Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln debated for their run for the presidency. They formed this type of debate, which from there on out has been called Lincoln-Douglas. In high school you may have known the Lincoln-Douglas debaters and the other people on the debate team as geeks or losers. I was one of the geeks or losers. Or you may have been on the debate team, and if so, then you know something about the form of debate. Now it involves a resolution. So here's the resolution. Education is indispensable for mature adulthood. There are 2 sides. Someone's going to offer the affirmative and someone's going to offer the negative side. So the affirmative is going to say, yes, it's true that education is indispensable for mature adulthood. And the negative is going to say, no, education is not necessarily indispensable for mature adulthood. Now normally these take place within a half an hour, but this is over YouTube, so this will be more difficult. There's 5 speeches, and they go in the following order. Affirmative speaks first. Let's go like that. First the affirmative gives their speech, and it's a 6-minute speech. They talk for 6 minutes. Now, there's 5 speeches, so they're not evenly divided. The thing about the affirmative is they get 3 speeches, and they're all short. The negative gets 2 speeches that are both long, or the first 2 speeches are equal length, so let's go to that. Affirmative speaks 6 minutes, negative speaks 6 minutes. Fine. Then affirmative speaks again, and they speak 4 minutes, and then the negative speaks a full 7 minutes, and then affirmative finishes off with 3 minutes. So the only difference is the affirmative is split into a 4 and a 3, and the negative gets their whole 7 minutes in one speech. So the affirmative gets the first and last word, and the negative gets the long talking slots. You make an affirmative speech, and someone assigned to you or someone who chooses to make a negative makes a negative 6-minute speech. Then the next speech has to be 4 minutes, and then 3 minutes. So these could be titled affirmative 1, affirmative 2, and affirmative 3 for the speeches, and negative 1 and negative 2. We would also have cross-examination, where you get to question your partner, but that's just impossible. So we're just going to leave that out and see if we can make this work. Now a little bit about the format that your case will take. Basically, you will just be making a speech. But in order to get it organized, there's a formula. Formula goes like this. You have your value, your criteria, and then 3 points. You can have subpoints under each. Some people only have 2 points in their speech. Now, a value, remember, education is indispensable for mature adulthood, right? So let's say we're the affirmative, and you can choose your own value. It's up to you. You can value Captain Crunch, but that would be ridiculous. Education is indispensable for mature adulthood. We could value education because it leads to mature adulthood. We could value happiness, right? Because if you're a mature adult, you'll be happy. And in order to be happy and be a mature adult, you have to be educated. So we could have our value be happiness. That's what we're seeking. And then we would talk about how to get there. We could have our value be social equality or social stability or, some crazy thing like that. The case I'm building as I go along here. The affirmative here is going to value happiness. Now, happiness is an easy value to use because, as Aristotle pointed out, it's the only thing that we do, or we try to acquire, for itself. You never try to acquire happiness and save a bunch of it up so that you can go to the movies with it or whatever. If you do save something up, like money, for example, and then do something with it, like go to the movies, for example, the reason you go to the movies is to make yourself happy. So everything's aimed at happiness. So happiness is the primary value. So we're going to make happiness our value here. Our criteria for when have we achieved our value. Remember, our value being happiness. Our criteria is to look at a given situation or a scenario, or look at our arguments, or look at our opponent's case and say, have they achieved happiness? Now, what criteria are we going to use? What are we going to say? This is how we say whether or not we've got happiness. The criteria. Turns out you can use education as the criteria. Because simply looking at the amount of education a person has had and the quality of that education, that's it. All you look at is the amount and quality of their education. You can tell a lot statistically about where they're going. But statistically, the more education you have, the richer and happier and better off you are. So our criteria to tell whether we've achieved happiness in a society is to look at their quality of education. So our criteria is education for the affirmative. Point number 1. Adulthood requires an understanding of lots of different actions from many different people in history. Learn from those who came before you, they say. Those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. Now we've said what adulthood, mature adulthood requires. An understanding of history requires that the history itself be learned by the student in a proper way. What's a proper way? That's our subpoint, subpoint A. And we'll go on to point 3. The other branches exhibit the same properties as history. Subpoint A would be a quick blurb about how science needs to be learned effectively and why it's important. 2 sentences maybe. Subpoint B would be why math, and subpoint C would be why literature are important and effective. And you need to be learned effectively. So that's a quick little case, which should be typed up about 2 pages. Remember, it has to be read word for word in 6 minutes. The first 6-minute speech for each of you is when you'll read your case. Now the affirmative has a 6-minute case, right? They get to read their case for 6 whole minutes. The negative, however, has been taking notes as the affirmative reads, right? So the negative has to present their case, and they should usually take about 3 minutes on it. And the negative then has to reply to the affirmative's case in the other 3 minutes. The affirmative speech needs to be a 6-minute speech. That's a long speech. The negative speech needs to be about 3 to 4 minutes, 2 minutes if you're brave and 5 if you're crazy.